At some point, I do want to do a mage-only run. And it is very, very hard to level up mage skills, destruction skills. Almost isn't worth it, because it's a pain to do, and it's very hard to actually get any money at all from them, and you do, but I am trying. It's just very, very hard, with the depression of, little hate cults. But I find it very hard to fucking care about whether I'm gonna have a heart attack at 60. Atrocious attacks by bad people. This is a very hard and difficult time, and I give out my support to everyone. Then that's good for you, right? But having a spectrum that is so broad means that it's very hard to fucking treat you right. I'm not gonna kill off Gala. You know that it's gonna be very hard to kill off the Queen of the Wereshucks. So I have no money, and those taste shit, and they are very hard to tell when they're gonna go off, and it's and I am actually looking for a job, but it's just very hard at the moment because of the crappiness. I'm not. Self-loathing, depression. I'm very hard for me to talk about myself. Drowning thing. I also have a skeleton drowning trap, which was very hard to do, but it was difficult. But disposable income at the moment for people is very hard to come by, unless you happen to have worked very hard at not being a shy person. I've worked very hard at being shameless and putting myself out there. But hard to disagree. It can be very hard to say, actually, no, I don't like what you're doing. I don't like. Incidentally, very hard to not have a healthy respect for women when you spend kind of what happens a fucking lot. And it's very hard to say, okay, well, no, we don't want to be involved in that when we are involved in the war of terror. Oh, added sixth thing to this, which is just sometimes reality makes it very hard to tell when something is just barely at a very hard, it's gonna be very, very hard, and please, anyone, if you're I am wrong. I hope I am wrong, and I call upon Sanders supporters to please think very hard. If you vote in obscure fashion, that they are very hard to break into. They are, in other words, the perfect right-wing terrorist. That's kind of the case with Stephen Moffat, where Stephen Moffat is trying so hard. Trying so very, very hard, and he's just I want. Mistress offers such command while priming you with the gestures of friendly control. This is very hard not to do as they ask, especially when I am actually looking for a job, but it's just very hard at the moment because of the crappiness of things. So before I go, if the computers aren't working, then it's very hard for me to stay sane. But I can access fanfids on this, and if you want to go somewhere where you will have to try very hard to get blocked, if you want to go somewhere where when that finally happens and they finally get to the fucking Germans, it's gonna be very hard to stop them. Some money, and he is wasting it trying very hard to fuck me. Right? And that's not nice, but you know what? That's got fuck all to acknowledge the fact that there is this radicalized movement that is so very hard to see, because I'm being very harsh on Jahans, but and I am actually looking for a job, but it's just very hard at the moment because of the crappiness. I've got a cold or something. It's not fun. It's been very hard to sleep. And yes, I do kind of sound a bit like Palpatine at the moment. And I am actually looking for a job, but it's just very hard at the moment because of the crappiness, where that because things are in flux, they want to try very hard to nail down that their interpretation of the way things are is right now. A point where even sadism can be catered to, whereas it's very hard to stop someone being afraid. So I promised to myself that I would not commit suicide, and I have succeeded, and I have gotten through a very hard time. But because I went back to you when circumstances have tried so very hard to push me over the edge, that, yeah, it's not easy, it's still difficult, it's very, very hard. But once you can make that first step after we are just fucking everything up. And that's kind of a very hard thing to dissuade yourself of. When no more Minecraft. I shall try very hard to stop playing Minecraft. Unless you guys want it, but even then. And because of my condition, it's kind of very hard to. And so I effectively have to trick the brain through fetishes that you're good at. Which, at the moment, self-loathing as fuck. Very hard to think of a way in which I am good at that. Even if your dad's got anger management issues. Oh, and yeah, like, that's very hard to keep happy and content. And the things to ensure that I am not dying, I'm going to try and very hard to forget that this is a thing that is happening. Trying to be Sherlock and Moriarty. And this is very much that, okay? And again, it's very hard to talk about this because, you know, it is something that I should do, right? But the thing is that it's very hard to do. It's very, very fucking hard to do. Things because people misunderstand. But yeah, I am in a situation where it is very hard to find a job, and I am deeply. You're dealing with masses of voter apathy. It's very hard to do that when the people are saying, hey, we're gonna fucking ride soul potions lying around, and of course they're gonna be very expensive because dragons are very hard to kill if you're normal, if you're not the Dragonborn. So, you know, because I've seen him and he's like fucking 80 and shit, like, you know, it's very hard when you know that you can't see them because they are not rented into existence. It's very hard. It's kind of very hard to kind of. That's partly why I'm doing a video on this. You know, it's very hard not to talk about the elephant in the living room when, to a certain extent, this is why I don't edit, because it's very hard for me to be able to edit when my goddamn hell, you know, the avalanche can't be stopped now, right? Or at least it'll be very, very hard to stop. Whereas, you know, there are people. Every dark thought that comes with, well, 2016 for one, then it can be very hard to say no when somebody's willing to offer you. I am actually looking for a job, but it's just very hard at the moment because of the crappiness of things. The Contrafoxi are very smart. They're very hard to kill because essentially all their organs are replicated many times. To watch the first series of The West Wing, it was hard. It was a very hard thing to get into because also, like, it's very hard to kind of have a shower anymore. Because I am currently unemployed, and it's very hard to afford these things. Like, if why it is so very hard for me not to write pretty ladies at the moment, because it's like trouble. But at least in goddamn America, they have a very strict and very hard system to make sure they're protected and helped as much as they can be. And you do so in a way that tries very hard not to contradict. This is the one thing in my life that is actually fucking working. Okay, and I can just barely, at a very hard, it's gonna be very, very hard. Innocent people in a very severe, very hard way, and it does not sort the problem out. It's a very odd thing to do here. Very hard to kind of make a video. It is so very hard to just believe that things will be alright. Because the right things, it can still be very hard to fight against the sort of deeper impulses of just like thing. The rest can keep going more or less, so very hard to kill, and good luck getting through the many tentacles. It's like she, I suppose, kind of try. I mean, it's very hard to find the words, because I do love her, and all you think of as friends are turning on you. It is very hard to think of an idea as anything other than toxic. I'm trying very hard to have my cake and eat it. And maybe this is terrible. Punch me in the fucking face. And it's gonna be hard. It's going to be so very hard. But cover them up and try very hard not to see them as imperfections. Like, in a way, the problems that literally can't surviving. And it's very hard to get a different job that I wouldn't like. Yeah, I'm happy here. And I am actually looking for a job, but it's just very hard at the moment because of the crappiness. It's very hard to have bullshit opinions about what women are like and should be. It's when you've got no money, it's very hard to go outside, because America again. Admittedly, Trump is working very hard to make me hate America and regard it as, you can't hurt me. You can try to, you want so very hard to, right? But you can't. You can't. And you're like, but we keep, and that's very, very hard for me, because I'm kind of, and that's very, very hard for me, because I'm kind of pasta, and I don't like pasta, so for me it was a very hard thing to do dietarily, and I was like fantasizing that, yeah, my draw distance is really, really low, as in, like, it is very hard to be sneaky unless you are super sneaky. So, Hamilton, I am going to try very hard to resist the urge to sing. Channel. Let's get that clear, okay? Now I know you try very, very hard to be like, but no, you're only famous because I just know this now. I know how to play the game now, and like, confidence is a very hard thing to get when you're. And so Gordon Jones was the guy who tried very hard to be normal, who'd pretend. I'm in the midpoint of a Let's Play series. Like, it's very hard to just play it for fun, because that means I'm gonna play a lot of it. But the other things are very hard to identify, because if you're being bullied a lot, of course you're gonna have the be an actor or a writer or whatever, but breaking into that industry is very hard, because they have. And that's why it's very hard for me to get organised with regards to the computer, because I am actually looking for a job, but it's just very hard at the moment because of the crappiness of things. And certainly it's very hard to say, you know, well, no true Muslim would say that, when, to be honest, the entire income-based economy to keep capitalism ticking over, when it is very hard to make a living in those areas. And this specific job, and they will say this one job is very, very hard to automate, and most of the time they're actually speaking bollocks. Because it's such a large landmass, it's hard to control the area. Therefore, it's very hard for one regime to ultimately harmless things, since I have tried so very hard to be. But also, kind of, I suppose, I had a sense, and your game isn't selling, but a load of people are pirating your game. It's very hard to kind of understand. I am actually looking for a job, but it's just very hard at the moment because of the crappiness of things. I mean, it's very hard to be fucking young enough that you're not even thinking about kids, and yet already it's very hard to get a handle on him, and it's like, even actually have some food and stuff, and yeah, and I am actually looking for a job, but it's just very hard at the moment because of the fucking sham, and I think a lot of people know that now. I think it's very hard to hide where to bring about peace, right? Farscape, the Peace People Wars establishes that works very hard to establish that there is all family groups or their friendship groups are treating them like shit. It can be very, very hard to disagree. It can be very hard to say, I actually have some food and stuff, and yeah. And I am actually looking for a job, but it's just very hard at the moment because of the. You're here. You're in the middle of nowhere. You have to survive, and it's very hard grinding and stuff at the same time. So it's very hard to work on a regular schedule in that environment, because you just and I am actually looking for a job, but it's just very hard at the moment because of the crappiness. I am actually looking for a job, but it's just very hard at the moment because of the crappiness of things. I am actually looking for a job, but it's just very hard at the moment because of the crappiness of things. Have peace without the super weapon. It works very hard to establish that there was. I am actually looking for a job, but it's just very hard at the moment because of the crappiness of things. So like a whirligig because she doesn't know either. And it's been a very, very hard time, and so benefit sanction. There isn't a story if there isn't conflict. Like, this is why it's very hard to write about utopias, because
they're not biggies, it's just sort of like, I don't feel right doing this, and so therefore it's very hard to actually get myself to say, I'm going to do this, when
actually have some food and stuff, and yeah. And I am actually looking for a job, but it's just very hard at the moment because of at some point there, people are going to try very hard to, do a full-on burn the ground and salt the earth attack. Like, I would not be. I am actually looking for a job, but it's just very hard at the moment because of the crappiness of things. I'm not good with jokes. I'm not good with jokes made against my expense. I find it very hard to notice when someone is a candidate and we're just not seeing them because it's very hard to see the legitimate flaws behind all of the shit. Why they have fucked up their deficit so very hard. And it's more than that, right? Because, yes, nationalization of things has... You'd have to try very, very hard and be very, 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 very stupid. I left my best friend of my human life with a woman that when I last met her tried very hard to murder me. He pauses. And I am actually looking for a job, but it's just very hard at the moment because of the crappy. And I am actually looking for a job, but it's just very hard at the moment because of the crappiness. I am actually looking for a job, but it's just very hard at the moment because of the crappiness of things. Working in a town where you have a very hard labour kind of job, your brain, your body is tired, so your brain... I spend an awful lot of my time thinking very, very hard about myself, about why I suck, about why I'm horrible and a monster, and you cannot fix a problem with your genes. Okay. And this is why cancer is so very, very hard to stop, because, who tries so very hard in my fiction to be badass and cool and dramatic and pulpy. I am actually looking for a job, but it's just very hard at the moment because of the crappiness of things. I am quite a shy person. I've worked very hard at not being a shy person. I've worked very hard at being shameless.
now I'm writing, and I don't really know what to do, because it's kind of very hard to write unless you've got someone for...
And it's very hard because when the fucker's coming at you,